So hello and welcome to the Jiwe Game Jam Talk series. And tonight is our last workshop before our 48-hour Game Jam happening next week. Registrations are open already on Jiwe.io. And as you know, these talks are designed to give you insights and to shape how you think about game development, how you approach game jams, and also how to position yourself as a game developer in the best position to succeed in the industry. And if we have done just that in these talks, please fill in the feedback form should be in the chat now. So check that out. Make sure you fill that in. Boom. So we can know kind of what worked and what didn't work, so that in the next series we can know what to focus on. Now, for next week, we're excited about the start of the 48-hour Game Jam, which starts with a fireside chat with Stella Mwangi, who has made music for Valorant, and Ariam Tawia, our partner in Ghana, whose studio Leti Arts also has made a character called Astra for Valorant as well. So it'd be a very interesting kickoff just to hear about their journey developing music and developing characters for games. And we have also some interesting activities planned out for next Friday as well. And Saturday, we kick off the Game Jam. We have three themes. We have music-driven games. We have casual games, particularly web casual games. And we also have the theme of anti-slavery games as well. Right, so should be interesting.
Wow.
We also have a virtual event, performance in a game, basically a performance in a game environment, where we'll all join a game environment and enjoy a performance from a musical artist and possibly some spoken word. And we'll also have a play test session towards the end of Saturday where we can test African games that have been released online. So far, the jam will run online and physically in 3 cities. We have our partners here in Nairobi at the Nairobi Game Development Center. We have our partners in Ghana at Leti Arts, and we have our partners in South Africa at the Somolongon Game Lab. So if you're within in the area of these 3 centers, it's going to be physical for you. But otherwise, if you want to join, you can join online. At the start of the game jam, we'll form teams. If you're an individual, however, if you want to come within an already formed team, that's all good as well. I think the maximum size for a team is 4, but all that is within the registration process that you'll see. But anyway, back to the talk for today. I want to introduce to you our favorite Unity advocate, Manuel, who's a renowned futurist, artist, and advocate for Unity, where he has pioneered advancements in mixed realities and AI. And today we want to know more about how we can use AI in Unity. Yes, and particularly in game jams like the one coming up next week. And with that said, we have Manuel with us, who will give us the most up-to-date info, as he said, as of last week. So we're very excited about that. So over to you, Manuel, and we'll take questions in the chat as we go along. Over to you.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you, Max. That's really cool. I'm so happy to be here again. We were there, I think, like 2 or 3 weeks ago for the roadmap for Unity, which went super well, and we had a couple slides on this. Most recently, the generative AI explosion, I would say, has forced, I think, company to realize that the market is changing, the developers are changing, the way that people work is changing, but the user's expectation is also changing. In gaming, it's a bit different because I think because it's an artist-driven environment, even though most people are engineers, there's a lot of art in the making of a game. And I would argue that engineers are artists the same way that a technical artist is an artist. You're just using different tools. And these tools are evolving. So how can we adapt to what's now? That is now obvious. It's not something we can hide from anymore. It's there. How can we choose to use it in a way that's, empowering us as creators and not replacing us? And how can we think of a way to use it that's replacing the part of the work that we don't like to do or that we're not good at doing, so that we can spend more time on the things that we should be doing? So when I think about gaming, especially in game jams, let's say you have a team and you're missing a coder, that can be really problematic because most of your game might need scripts and functions to work. And if you don't have a coder, some people don't even participate in game jam because they cannot, complete their project. But as a designer in the past, I used to participate in game jam in a physical way. You could make a card game, you could build a board game, you can invent mechanics on a paper book without having even one line of code, and it's still game making. On the other side, maybe you're a developer, but you have zero talent and you don't know how to generate visuals, sprites, music, and things like that. And that can be very restrictive to your art or to your project. So with Unity AI, we're trying to come up with tools that will be integrated directly at the editor inside of the workflow you already know and love. And if you're a beginner and you've never used Unity before, this is the best time to actually start working in Unity because now you have this assistant that's in the editor helping you out. So throughout this presentation, I will be kind of give you a kind of overview of where we were about a year ago, what things have changed since last year to today, what have been announced a couple weeks ago, literally dropped in May, and what is coming soon. And I think that most of what I'm going to show you today are going to be things that you can implement tomorrow or today in your projects, things that you could be playing with this week if you want, or discover the day of the game jam as a way to prototype and ideate faster, and things that can continue to help you in your future of your game development story. So without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my screen. And the name of the session is Improving Your In-Editor Workflows with Unity AI. If you've seen GDC, my talk at GDC last year, or my talk at Unite last year, you might have already heard about the concept of Unity AI, which was called Muse before. So before that, I'm going to present myself quickly. My name is Manuel. I'm a senior advocate at Unity, specialized in emerging tech. So emerging tech for me encompasses a lot of technology like extended reality, mixed reality, VR, AR, but as well as AI and other things that I work with, like neural devices. I have one on my desk right now, which is kind of like a device you put on your head and you can read EEG brainwaves interfaces, basically. But enough about me. I want to talk to you about AI today. So in the agenda, we'll talk about the 6.1 transition to 6.2, the Unity AI, which is now the new drop and what's inside, and some snippets of what's coming. So before being called Unity AI, we had two type of platforms. One was called Centis, which was basically an inference engine, basically a platform that allow you to do AI at the runtime level within your game, so that your users can actually tap into some models like image recognition or body tracking and things like that that you could find from Hugging Face or other platforms online and literally pour into your game, run thanks to Centis within your game on Unity and let your user play with it. And then there were Muse, so Centis on one side and then Muse on one side. Muse was not for the runtime, but for the editor time, for when you're actually building your game within the engine, helping you as a developer build your game using AI. The same way that people have been, using ChatGPT maybe on the window on the side, generating some code and then copy pasting it into their script on under the other screen using Visual Studio or any other IDE connected to Unity. That is kind of what Muse is was trying to accomplish. And the goal was to avoid having this back and forth between so many different products and windows and having everything integrated within the editor. So the good news is that Muse is still a concept that exists. Everything you've heard or tried with Muse exists, but we've converted it to something called Unity AI. First of all, because marketing wise, it's a bit simpler to just call it what it is. Also, because there's a lot of other tools called Muse out there. If you heard of Microsoft Muse, for example, which is a game AI type of project. And I think it's confusing when there's too many things that are layered. And it sounded like we were trying to build an AI engine on the side, and then Unity was something else. And we wanted to make sure that people understand that the goal was not, first of all, to sell you AI. We're not trying to, bring more crap in the world. The goal is really just to find features and products that are useful, first of all, for developers and integrate them where they already are, which is in their workflow in the editor. So Muse evolved from being something that can help you find code, solve bugs in your code, generate code, having a context awareness of the tools, creating and ideating on your workflow, generating art and assets using AI. So there were different components of Muse. There was the chat component, which was the assistant. So you can talk to it, ask questions about your project. It was trained ethically on the Unity license data. So it's not trained on your code. It's not trained on GitHub repositories. It's not trained on YouTube tutorials. It's really trained on the Unity documentation. And it's trained on our Learn platform. So all of the data that we own that is understanding of Unity, chat knew about it. So if you ask a question about HDRP, you would know what is HDRP. If you ask to generate a code that adds gravity to an object, it knows that you need to add a rigid body. Like it will translate your natural language into real understandable things that Unity semantic and terminology makes sense with. And then you had other things that were more on the art side, Sprite to generate 2D art by prompt. So you would do text to image similar to tools like Midjourney and things like that, but really focused on Sprite and 2D image that we find in games. So you would do great characters, assets, and objects, the background, stuff like that. Then we had 2D Enhancer, which was kind of a hint already at what Unity AI was about to do, which was integrated in the sprite editor. So whenever you open a sprite and you open the sprite editor, you know that you can slice, objects. You can already do a lot of things. We added a suite of different feature using 2D enhancers. So for example, you could upscale a sprite up to 2 to 4x. You could recolor a sprite. And the way that worked is that you would drag and drop a gradient image. It would inspire itself from the image, create a color palette, and then adapt that sprite that you choose and turn it into a different set of colors, following the consistency of your original sprite. And so allowing you to create, for example, a dark version of something that's light or a snow version of something that's summer. And then you had a pixelation feature that allowed you to turn any art into a pixel art. And then finally, the 2D sprite, removing the background, for example. You could generate an image and then remove the background. So a lot of quality of life features, and it's available in the sprite editor using Unity Muse at the time. And finally, Muse Texture. Muse Texture is more about generating 3D textures. I mean, it's 2D images, but for 3D models. PBR, basically, so physically based rendering. And you would have the normal map generated, the ambient occlusion map generated. You would use natural language prompt to generate what you want, like wood, marble, stone. You would have a perfect, reaction to lighting thanks to the different maps that it would generate. And you could still tweak it. It would be seamless, so it would be infinite. So you could use it as pattern for the floor, for an object, for a wall. So really useful. A lot of people use them. And we kept all of these features in Unity AI. So let's quickly talk about Muse Chat. And what I'm going to do is, instead of doing a 50-minute demo in the editor of what Muse Chat is right now, I'm going to show you some snippets of what's interesting about it. And then we'll move quickly to what is available today. And I'll get into that very quickly. So like I said, Muse Chat was like any ChatGPT equivalent that you think about, where you had a text prompt and you could type in what you want and then send enter. But it had different features. For us, it was able to solve problems. So you should be able to understand what's on your console. You could attach that as an element and understand it. You should be able to get ideas based on the data that it's trained on, the Unity appropriate data, and generate usable code. And I'm putting the intention on the usable, because there's a lot of tools out there that generate code that are not usable, that is full of bugs, or that is not written properly, or that is confusing. And you might just create a lot of garbage in your project. And as you scale, that becomes problematic. So to do that, we had three different portion of Muse Chat. So the first one is the increased accuracy with deep editor integration. You will be seamlessly understanding your project, tailoring responses to suit your query and setup. So if your project is built on, let's say, 6.1 or Unity LTS 2022, you would know which version your project is stuck with, because it can read the editor, so it understands the context. The attachment was another way to add context. So you could, the same way on ChatGPT, you can add an image or add a text file. You could add anything that's part of the editor that is selected. So you could select an object in the hierarchy or a prefab that is in your assets, And you could then attach that to the conversation. I don't know if you can see it here because it's a little GIF, but the person here is attaching 2 tags that are blue to its request before sending the message. And by doing that, the response you get is appropriate to the question you just asked. So it was really good to be able to say, hey, this object over there, can you add a component that makes it have gravity? And then you would understand that you're talking about the object that's currently selected. You will see the inspector add a new component called rigid body. And then your object, if you press play, would just fall. And that is a natural language thing that can be very useful because if you're a beginner in Unity, you might not know the word rigid body, or you might not know which component to add if you wanted to do something specific. So being able to interface with a tool using your natural language is super useful for beginners, but also for people that just try to go fast from idea to execution. And finally, like I said, the context, so optimized for complex Unity specific and technical queries, troubleshoot details, complexity is getting clear, context-aware solutions. So I have a quick video I can show you about me doing that on stage not too long ago. And I had this object on one of the URP sample scene on the desert with a bunch of different cactuses. And those bush, I wanted to just populate and have more vegetation inside of the space, inside of the scene. So I asked ChatGPT, sorry, not ChatGPT in this case, Unity Muse, to generate a script that would allow me to duplicate that object. And when I did that, I went a little bit crazier. And I don't know if you can see, but this request that I sent is about 7 lines long. And that's just me using natural voice, natural language. I'm not even using technical term. But what I'm trying to say is that I want to be able to select any object in the scene and then point the camera somewhere else, click a button, and just populate it with multiple versions of that object. And for it to not look weird, I want the object to be rotating on the y-axis, and I want them to be different size and stuff like that. So I put a very long request, and it generates a shortcut where you can actually see the code if you want to by clicking on the little panel here. But when I look outside and I click, there you go. All of a sudden, I selected one of those palm tree and one of those rock, and he was able, when I click again, you'll see it, boom, to just populate the view. And he would follow the topology of the terrain because I asked to do a ray tracing of this object and actually make sure that when I populate the different object where I'm looking at, it follows the terrain, so I don't have to manually place them. So that's one of the value of Muse Chat, being able to do very quick ideas like that and just get to the result of it. So let's go back to the presentation. So like I said, you had 3 modes for Muse Chat at the time. You had the run mode, the script mode, and the text mode. But that was a bit complex, and we didn't want people to have to think every time that they do something about which mode should I use. But just for your understanding, I'm going to go through them quickly. So the /run is what you saw before. It is about rapid scene prototyping. It allows you to execute commands to automate scene creation and speeds up your prototyping process. So very useful in the context of a game jam. You had streamlined iteration. So if you didn't like the result of what it did, you could revert and ask for something different, get a different shortcut, and continue to click until you find the sweet spot. And then you could save that conversation in the chat using the favorite button in the bar, allowing you to have effectively a shortcut that you can reach out to and click multiple times. So for the desert scene, for example, I was able to do that every time, multiple times in every single location that I wanted, and rapidly add more object to my scene. For code, it was different. It was a mode where you could pre-compile code generate. So that means that it would generate code that is already pre-compiled. So we know the code is working. You don't have this moment of stress of, oh, is the code is actually going to work. It would always be pre-compiled code. So you know the code is working. I'll give you another example for that. A little bit later in that video, I had this water scene and I wanted to have like fish inside of them. So I basically had a prefab of a fish that you can see. And I wanted to just drop it in the water. If I just drag and drop it, the fish would be floating above the water. It wouldn't be perfectly sized. I would have to position it manually, and that was a lot of work. Plus, I wanted to have a school of fish, so many different fish. So I created a code where I attach the fish to the conversation. And I say, when I select this prefab and I click on this shortcut, I want you to populate this scene with multiple versions of this fish. And I give it as a location for dropping the fish, a invisible cube that I created that I called aquarium, which was just on the surface of the water, so that I know that it would not put the fish in the air or any other weird location. It would just populate it within the volume constraint. And you can see in the video right now, I'm going to click. And there you go. All the fish are now in the water. And as you can see, they're all in different location, different rotation, because I asked that also in my prompt. But the code part, because this is still run, right? I'm just making it do something in the scene. The code part is that I wanted to generate a script. And I don't know if you can see again, but in the hierarchy, I had invisible points, empty points that I created. And those empty points are a little bit distributed everywhere in the scene. And I wanted my fish to actually start moving from point to point and then create kind of a patrol node. And I wanted this patrol movement, like a patroller, to be randomized between the fish so that they are all moving around again, those different points in a very different ways. And I didn't want every fish to follow each other because that would look weird. So I wanted to randomize that. But again, I'm not a coder, so I didn't know how to code this. So I generated using the code function a script that then I could drag and drop. So you can see me drag and drop the script on the fish over there. And in the code, there were two variables, again, generated from Muse, from Unity AI, asking me for the speed of the fish. So it was about 5, so I reduced it to about 1, I think. And then the angle rotation for when a fish arrives at a specific patrol point. So I said, reduce that speed to 3. And then I look at all of the different patrol points that I had in the hierarchy and I attach them to the script because the script is also asking what are the different points the fish should be going through. And then I click on play. And as you can see now, the fish are now moving. I'm just going to increase the quality of the video so that we can make sure to see the high quality. Give me 1 second. And there we go. So as you can see, all the fish are now moving from one point to the other, following the script that we just generated. And again, I didn't write one line of code. And the beauty of that is that the code that Muse and / Unity AI generates is also commented. So even if you don't understand the script perfectly, you will understand the different sections. You'll know what section does what. You know what to look for. And you train yourself to understand code better as well, or to practice new ideas because you're using this as almost of a back and forth, a conversation. So a little bit later in the background, that in the presentation, I present ask, run, and code. And then later I present Muse Sprite. So Muse Sprite, like I said, allow you to generate sprites. You have a in-painting tool allowing you to add an object. For example, I'm like drawing on top of the dog that I generated to create a hat. So I can have different hats and I can choose from it. And it keeps the consistency of the style and of the art that I chose. But then we did a bunch of tests and internally we realized that the model that we made for Sprite, even though it was made by Unity, was ethically trained, was not using any artist work. The output was not that great. It was not looking like the quality of what the user expects, even though it's for prototyping. And the goal is just to get some visual very fast. There is a level of expectation that is now there on the AI market, and people want to have a certain quality of work, even if it's for prototyping, even if they're going to replace that asset later on in their actual project. So we decided to turn Sprite into a platform, allowing third-party tools like Scenario or Layers, which are companies that are making image models specifically for games, to have their model hosted on our platform called Sprite Partner Models. And this will allow user to have this interface right now that I'm showing you, select a specific model based on what they want to generate. So for example, you might want to generate a 3D platformer environment or a 3D cartoon character. Or maybe you just want to have a very specific sticker or RPG asset for your 2D game. And based on that, you would then be able to generate models that are following this art style. Then we had Mute 2D Enhancer. So 2D Enhancer, like I said before, is an upscaler, a recoloring tool, and a remove background tool. So you can see on the GIF here how it works. The The quality is getting more and more higher on the upscale. On the recolor, we're able to move the tiara from red to green just using the background image as a reference. It created a color palette, and then the color palette is applied to the image. Like you see, the image changes color, but not the composition. So it's perfect to integrate an element that you might have generated with Muse Sprite into your existing environment or game. And finally, the remove background, in this case, super useful, being able to bring this headset into this aquarium location. And again, we use the color to turn it blue, then remove background, upscale, brought it to the background. So that's a simple workflow that can be super useful. And finally, Muse texture. So Muse texture, PBR enabled interfaces, seamless with in-painting options, so you could actually modify certain aspect and regenerate. The border masking, you can tile up to 2x. So that's chat, sprite, 2D enhancer, and textures. But again, I wanted today to show you what's new. So forget everything that I just said. We're making Unity AI way simpler in terms of naming convention. There is no more Muse chat. Muse chat is now called the Unity AI assistant. Okay. And then there's no more Muse sprite, texture, sound, and animate. We're now calling them Unity AI generators. So you can generate image, you can generate sound, you can generate animation, you can generate textures. And finally, Centis, which was super obscure, most people didn't know about it, is now called exactly what it is, an inference engine of Unity AI. So again, transitioning into 6.2, those are the new terms. This is how it's called right now. And there is a beta that just started 2 weeks ago. So that was a surprise that I wanted to share with you today. In case you didn't hear about it, Unity AI is now in the 6.2 beta. So you only have to go to unity.com, download the hub if you don't have it already. And in the hub, download the latest version of the 6.2 beta. Look for the beta. It's going to be called 6000.2. And then once you download that, you'll have something new in your interface. So let me quickly show you. I have a version of 6.2 running right now. As you can see in the title, it's called 6.2 beta. And when you're in the 6.2 beta and you're in your project, so this is a pretty cool project made by one of our team members using assets from the asset store. So it's like a pirate island. We have a skeleton pirate over there and some really cool house and like a Unity flag, basic scene, 3D scene. But you might have noticed that now in the interface after Unity 6, we also have this AI button. So that shows you how important Unity is taking the concept of AI.
Manuel, we're still on your slides. Sorry, if you've gone into the
Oh,
editor.
sorry. Yep, let me switch to the editor. Thank you for this. Is it good now?
Yes, we're on your editor. Perfect.
Awesome. So like I said, this is the 3D scene that was made by a team member using asset from the asset store. We have a pirate and we have the Unity flag over there and a couple houses and 3D objects. Very simple, very basic 3D scene. And in the header, you can see that it says the 6.2 beta. In the header, we now have the AI button over there. So this AI button is now front and center because we wanted to make it easy for people to understand where to go to use those functions. And like I said, totally optional. You don't have to click on it. If you don't like AI or if you don't want to use AI, totally okay. You don't have to. But we made it so that the people even that are a little bit on the edge of using AI, that are a bit cautious about using AI for their project, can still have the power to accelerate their prototyping phase. Because guess what? Everything that you generate using AI, so whether you generate an animation, a material, sound, sprite, texture, or the assistant, if you open the assistant right now, there's going to be a floating windows called the Unity AI Assistant, which is just right there, like ChatGPT. You can dock it in your interface and you can just talk to it. And in the same way, if you want to generate a new sprite, like I said, you would click on generate new sprite, and that would open a new window with the model selector. And you can say, all right, these are all the different models I can play with. Maybe I want to generate, I don't know, an icon for a 2D game that I'm making, but I want the icon to be very consistent, or a new weapon. So I would select the minimalist 3D props, and I would say, maybe it's not a gun that I want to do, but a leash or a whip. Let's say you're doing an anti-slavery game for the game jam, like we said. Maybe you want to generate a whip. So I would click on whip. I would hit generate. It would generate 4 versions of the object that I want. The dimension will be 1024 by 1024. We'll wait a little bit. As you can see, there's a percentage filling it there. And give it a couple more seconds. We noticed that depending on the server, it can be up to 1 minute for a generation, but usually it goes pretty fast. And like I said, there's different models you can use. And all of the different functions that I mentioned before, removing the background, upscaling, pixelating, they are all available in the tabs here. So you can actually go, and once you have the image that you want, you can go and select different type of features. Seems that my server is a little bit slow today, so worst case, we'll just skip it. In the meantime, let me show you the assistant. So in the assistant, you have the power to actually attach, like I said, anything that you want. So if I were to, let me just dock this here for a while. If I were to select, for example, the Unity flag here, now it's selected. I have it selected my hierarchy. I can go and attach it. And if I click on attach, it will see different things attached. And in the selection, I can see the flag and I can check it. And now the flag is a tag in my request. So if I ask something about the flag, it will understand. So I can say something like, how can I change the texture on this object? And then you click on send. And this will send a request to Muse, sorry, to Unity AI Assistant now. I'm still stuck on the old naming convention. And then you will have your response in the chat very soon. There we go. So to change the texture on the flag object in your Unity project, follow these steps. Locate the material. The flag object uses a material name flag SG, so we can see it here, as indicated in the material property of the mesh render component. That's exactly what it is. Edit the material, click on it, and then apply the material if needed, verify the change, etc., etc. It even gives you a script with code included that you can see is tagged, AI tag with titles and everything. And if you want, you can click on save, and that will be a change flag texture.cs script that's already pre-generated, pre-compiled, that I can add to my scene, that I can save in my assets, and that I can play with. On the new sprites, it finally finished to create the whip. So obviously it's not perfect, but depending on the object that you want, you might have one that you select, and then you can say, okay, let's remove the background. And it will now take that object and try to remove the background from it on the new generation. So you always have the history of all of your generations, so you can continue to iterate like that. You can upscale things, and there we go. Now I have the object without the background. And if I click on it and I just drag and drop it in my assets, now I have an object generated over there that I can just use. And if I double click it, it's exactly what I want, and it doesn't have a background. And again, you can upscale it, you can change the colors, you can turn it into pixels. I'm not going to do everything, but I just wanted to give you a chance to see what it looks like. And let's go back to the presentation. So like I said, Muse Chat, Sprite, Texture, Sound, Animate is now Unity AI. It's all in the assistant or the generators. And in terms of upcoming things, so in March recently, we have improved the inference engine called Sentis at the time. In May, we just launched the UI beta, so you just have to go on unity.com/AI if you want to hear more about it and you want to understand better. There's a whole new page. Matter of fact, can I share my entire screen? One. Yep. I'm just going to show you unity.com/AI. You will arrive on this web page here, and it contains everything I just told you about the key features of different tools, from the assistant to the generators to the inference engine. There's a documentation for each, so make sure you go into it to learn a bit more about it. How to get started? Like I said, you just download the 6.2 beta. There's a button shortcut over there. There's documentation on it if you want to hear more about it. And if you have any questions that I won't be able to answer today, we have a FAQ that's quite extensive. There's a lot of questions already answered. We've answered for every question you might have, like how to get access, what features are inside, what is it, what is happening to Muse, for people that are just very attached to Muse, like, oh, are we losing Muse? Like, all of those questions are already answered, the costs, the models, and all the questions you might have all there. I'm just going to quickly finish with this presentation, and then we can get to some question and answers. So like I said, in the future, we'll include a system of points for all paid users, and Muse is sunset and Sentis renamed to Inference Engine, and we'll have simple onboarding and pricing with additions. And in the future, so more like July and above, the assistants are going to continue to get improved, because as new models come out, obviously the assistants gets better. The previous version, for example, could only have, I think, one object attached to it as a background context. Right now, you can have up to 9 or 10 objects. So you could select a bunch of stuff in your hierarchy and error code at the same time as a selected object in your scene or a prefab in your assets, and ask a massive question around all of these different things. And the assistants will really understand the relationship between those objects. We'll have also character generation, we'll have skybox generation, we'll have 3D mesh and textures, and more. So let me give you a glimpse of that. So I'll focus on sprite, 2D textures, and I didn't show you, but we have animation and sound. So the sound can be stuff like a gunshot, or someone walking on wood planks, or the sound of a whip. So depending on what game you're making, it could be very hard to find the perfect sound pack with 3,000 sound on the asset store that's not too expensive, that contains maybe the audio that you want, but you don't have a preview of it. So you have to download it, then you have to look through this 3,000 sound one by one until you find the sound that you want. Or you can use Unity Sound and put a text, click generate, and have the exact sound that you want. And I think that's the value of tools like this, where you don't have to go through so much work. If you're just prototyping, you just want to move forward, you want to have a prototype that looks as close as possible to your game. The biggest tool that I think I didn't show you that is important is that we have something in the assistant that's going to allow you to check what are basically the elements in your app that are generated with AI. And so if at the end of your project, you're ready to publish and you want to put it online, you're ready to hire an artist to finish some of the art, you're ready to hire a composer to make the music, you have the power to highlight everything you've generated with the assistant or Unity AI generators and flag them. And so you can use them as placeholder for later on replacing them with real art, with real artists. So that everything that looks wishy-washy or that's a bit too low quality for your final game, or because you care about not using AI, let's say, you have the power to highlight that and really replace everything manually. And just to finish, second, there you go. So a lot of people have also heard about generators like 3D models. We have a lot of tools that exist already in the market that can generate 3D models. Unity is going to come with new generators in 6.3, potentially launching in November. I'm not making any promise here, so don't quote me on that, but most likely. And that will include a 3D mesh generator with 3D textures, skyboxes, and then later, if we can include it, we'll have music and characters as well. But as you can see in the thumbnail, the 3D model that you get from current 3D modelers is a huge mesh. Like if you're generating a car, you're just getting one car. So if you're trying to make a game with a car, anyone that's making a car game knows that you need to separate the steering wheel and the wheels from the body of the car, because if the car is moving and it's just one block that's going left and right, that's not realistic. So we will actually use AI on top of the models generated to be able to identify pieces that needs to be separated from the mesh. So that if you're making a car, well, the wheels are going to be its own object, allowing you to actually customize the animation to your liking. And on the inference engine, we're working with partners from Google, Meta, and OpenAI, which you know are leading on the AI market, to actually include their models within our projects. And you'll be able to have neural acceleration with chip and device makers, and IE powered tools like vision based editor search and speech gen. So that gives you an idea of what's coming in the future of Unity. You'll be able to integrate conversational AI with the editor, talk to the editor and see it do things. You'll be able to maybe tell it, I don't understand what's happening. And it will see visually your screen and understand where to click and give you precise spatial understanding of your project. So again, this is very far-fetched in the future, but that's what the team is currently researching. So I'm giving you a hint. And by the way, no one heard this presentation before. This is a worldwide first. So you are the first to actually hear about these different upcoming features. So let's keep it on the hush until they are completely confirmed. But I wanted to give you an idea of where this is going. Novel Unity-centric interaction, keeping user in the loop with full creative control, not a one-click slot machine, which most models in the world are right now. And then the agentic aspect. So being able to put yourself in the seat of a director of a game. And you'll have your world builder, your UI builder, your profiler, your asset generator, your project analyzer. A lot of people have been saying, okay, it's cool for generative AI, but I'm already a great artist. I don't need these tools. Cannot AI help me with the performance of my game, for example? We'll have that. We'll have the assistant being able to understand so much your project that it can also highlight places where the project could be optimized. So you can understand how that can be super huge for small teams in the future. And it will continue to improve. We'll have an API so people can use it outside of Unity. Maybe you're a Godot client. Maybe you want to use Godot, but you want to use the Unity Assistant in Godot. So things like that might happen in the future. You might have heard of MCP or third-party integration tools. So we're already exploring these things, and the company is aware of those advancements. So like I said, the goal will be to get a model from Hugging Face or ML agents, get it in Unity using the inference engine. It will be automatically optimized, so you won't have to train it. And then for relatively small model, you'll be able to make it super fast and then deploy in your game, just like any build. Here's some videos to finish of people making games using this.
Cybernetic mazes, let me be your muse.
So this was a preview of a bunch of things that were built with Sentis. So you've seen it, whether it's body tracking, numbers understanding, being able to control something with your hand. There's many models that exist right now. So being able to ship your game with that is amazing. If you're making a board game and you want to have an AI that actually understands the game, you could train a model on the game logic and have your AI with different level, beginner friendly, super evil, and have an AI as a character in your game that can have a dialogue, that can talk, that can have animation related to the lip sync. All of these things are possible already. All you have to do is go on these different platforms, use the inference engine, and play with it. So again, thank you so much. I wanted to finish with a little bit of Q&A. Hopefully we have enough time.
Yes, we do have enough time. Absolutely amazing. So much there. I'm even like taking notes to make sure that I test out some of this stuff. If we thought 6.2 was interesting, I can't wait for 6.3 already.
Me too.
But I love how everything has kind of been simplified into the three aspects: the assistant, the generators, and the inference engine. My favorite part of it was the attach function, where you can attach an asset and talk to it and help it. It helps you edit it. You already answered some of my questions because mine were around sound and animation, which is really cool to see what's going to happen there. I can see that we have something in the chat from
Let's
Priska.
see. Mm-hmm.
Priska goes, is there a
So is there a
prompt
prompt
library
library
Mhm.
where
Where
someone
someone
can get
can get...
ideas and an idea prompt sample? So, Priska, to answer your question, there is a documentation for each of the tools that I presented on unity.com/AI. I actually just put it in the chat. Let me just add the HTTP so it's a clickable link. And basically, you go on this page and you'll be able to want to install these tools. It's in beta right now, so it's free. You can use it until the general release, which is coming in 6.2. And the documentation contains examples, ideas, how to prompt the format and prompt engineering skills in a sense. But to be honest, you don't even need to use that. You can just go and start playing with it and talk to it like you're talking to a friend. Like I have zero background in development. I did a computer science master degree, but that was a long time ago, and I really focused on UX design. So I cannot code for the life of me a function in C sharp and be good at it. I could understand the structure of it, but that's about it. So being able to just speak my mind, think about the idea that I want. Like I want to add gravity to rock. I want to create a patrol of fish in a pond. Like all of these ideas are just natural language as you were speaking and explaining them to another human. And then it's translated into Unity functional pre-compiled code using the AI. So the interface between you and the AI is not anymore an obscure language that you have to master. You know, there's so many people that are scamming people into courses, become a prompt engineer. Like this job is not a job that will continue to exist because before we needed prompt engineers to be able to interface with AI because it was a very complex system. But the AI now is good enough to understand the simplicity of our language and turn it into complex code. So all you have to do is just talk to it. And we made it simple for you because we know we have users that are expert as much as people that are installing Unity for the first time. So we need to serve all of the different type of people to be the most inclusive, especially for non-English languages. I'm thinking of myself. In Guadeloupe, we speak Creole. Some people don't speak fluent English. They need to be able to speak in French to Muse and have a chance to work. I don't know for all different African languages, for example, but it would be interesting to try in your native language if Unity Assistant can understand it. And if it doesn't, go on the discussions forum and maybe put a request to the team to include different languages as well. Because diversity is so important in the development community. I think it will be interesting to see Unity favoring and giving a emphasis on places that are usually historically not put in front. And that's a huge thing that I'm doing internally already with my simple person. But with the power of the community, we can change things. And the team told me before I jumped on the call, tell them to go on discussions because most people go on Discord or they leave a tweet or a comment on YouTube. That's going to get lost in the internet. The discussions platform is the best place to give feedback to the team because they read the forum post every single day. So if you have requests, complaints, ideas, even maybe the future of what it looks like is not exactly what you want to have, you might have a specific feature you're expecting to see. Go make a post on discussions forum and let your other friends know. Share the link of your post in the Jiwe Discord, and people can go and comment on it. And the most voice that we hear, the most the company will say, okay, there's something there we need to focus on. So you have the power to change the future of Unity AI. I see Guido 3D saying, or Gito, sorry if I'm not pronouncing it well. Can the AI suggest and auto-generate props to fill out a scene based on the theme, setting, or prompt? Yeah, absolutely. I've done in the past, selected different objects. He's not able to, to just see the topology of an object and be like, oh, that's a guitar. We're not there yet. But the image of a guitar is something you can understand, right? So you could say, I have a guitar, I have a palm tree, I have sand, I have a pirate, I'm making a pirate ship game. What other type of props should I be making? And it will give you ideas from just the chat perspective. And then using the generator that's coming soon, you'll be able to generate those 3D props and add them to your scene. Right now, it doesn't have a 3D generator. Like I said, it's something coming in 6.2 and beyond, 6.3, sorry. But it's coming. It's the next thing that the team is currently focusing on. We have working version of it in beta. It's just not available to the users yet. But yeah, I believe that everything you're asking right now will be very easy to ask for.
Amazing. Makes things so much more easier. I'm even thinking as an organizer of the game jam, I might even participate just to try out some of this AI stuff. We have one more question. I think
I think it's worth it.
Priscilla. Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. I think Priscilla is typing in our last question, so we can take that last question and we can bring it to a close. Really quickly, guys, it really helps us if you fill out the feedback form. Let us know what worked and what didn't, so we know how to design the next sessions. Manuel will be joining us again after the game jam. We'll be doing a deep dive this time into XR, so look out for that. And also, I will post the link into the link for the registration for the game jam. So you should register for that early enough. Get your place. We have, I think we've capped it at around 60 devs to join. But I think we'll get way more than that. So Priska's question is, I would be interested to get templates to find where to start since I'm a beginner.
So, Priska, the best thing I suggest is to install the Unity Hub from unity.com. Very simple. You can even access it from the unity.com/AI page. There will be a button to download 6.2. And once you have the Unity Hub installed, there is a section called sample on the side. The second you open it, once you're logged in, you have a sample section on the side. Let me show you actually. Right now, I can share my screen once. And when you create a new project, you click in sample on the left here, and you can say Unity 3D sample, universal 3D sample. This is a sample scene that contains 4 different scenes, including the one with the oasis and the desert that I mentioned before. Those scenes are free. You don't have to pay for anything, and Unity is free. So once you install Unity, you do new project, sample, universal 3D sample scene. You download the template and you create your project. And you will start with something already there. And then once you have Unity AI, you can start adding more stuff and generating more stuff from there. So I can understand you because sometimes it's hard, you're in Open Unity or Blender or any other tool and it's an empty space. You don't know what to do first. Like, how do I make a floor? How do I make the sky? It's cool to start from somewhere. So that's why the team worked on those free samples. And if you're interested in virtual reality, which is going to be the subject of the next talk in a month, we have a mixed reality multiplayer table template. So if you want to get ready for that talk ahead of time, look at this template, play with it a little bit, and I'll dive into it during the next talk, and we'll see how it works and how you can make your own VR games and AR projects. Thank you so
Sounds
much.
good.
It was really cool again. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Priscilla. And again, if you have any question, come on the discussions platform. Let me put the link in this chat again. It's discussions@unity.com. It's a forum basically that we have that not a lot of people know because we also have Discord, but the discussions platform is really the best place to get help from other people from the community. Maybe there is some posts that you can just learn from. You can make your own post, and you just need to log in with your Unity account. So it's free, very simple to play with. And the team reads it. That's the most important part. The product team that are making this all, they read it every day. So your voice matters. You don't need to be a popular person or to have followers on the internet to be seen. You just need to be a user, and everyone that's posting is going to be read because there's not a lot of people posting. So you're not like drawn in a sea of comments or fighting for being heard in the voice of Twitter. So I highly recommend, if you're passionate about the future of the tool you use, to go there, to be vocal, and to ask for what you want. So again, thank you, everybody. My pleasure is to come here, and anytime you need me, Max, you know it's going to be a pleasure to support the community. And hopefully we see each other in South Africa later this year for Africa Games Week if you're participating. I don't know yet any update about that, but my team said that they're going to try to make it a recurring, at least yearly event to come to Africa. South Africa is the easiest hub for Unity to send us, but I'm already telling them about the good things we're doing here with this community, and maybe we'll get to West Africa next time. So I'm excited.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll meet there, and when we run the second version of the game jams, maybe it'll be big enough this time to draw you guys in. So
yeah,
fingers
fun.
crossed for that. Yeah. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, everyone, for
My
joining. And for those who are here, I'll see you next week. Manuel, we'll see you later in the month. Bye, guys.